Commander Kim Soo-jin rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the glowing screen again. The diplomatic vessel Harmony was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. They had been traveling through space for 3 weeks now, heading to the Crystalline Assembly's homeworld for what everyone thought would be boring peace talks. But what she found in the intercepted data files was anything but boring. This can't be right, she whispered to herself, scrolling through page after page of translated alien communications. The words on the screen painted a picture so horrible that her hands began to shake. The 3 most powerful civilizations in the galaxy had been working together for thousands of years. The Zephyrians with their crystal bodies that could live forever. The Nexus, a group mind that shared thoughts across millions of beings. The Luminary creatures made of pure energy who could travel faster than light without ships. These ancient powers had been secretly controlling every younger species they encountered. Soo-jin's throat felt dry as she read about the management protocols for dealing with primitive species. That's what they called races like humans, beings who had only recently learned to travel between stars. The files showed detailed plans for how to keep young civilizations weak and dependent. "Captain Park," she called out, her voice barely steady. "We need to see this right now." Park J1 walked over from the navigation station, his boots clicking on the metal floor. He was a good man, someone she had served with for 5 years. If anyone could help her make sense of this nightmare, it would be him. "What is it, Commander?" he asked, settling into the chair next to her. Soo-jin pointed at the screen. "Look at this report from the Zephyrian Council. It's dated 3 months ago." She read aloud, "The human expansion into the Vega sector must be stopped. Recommend implementation of Protocol 7 on their mining colonies." Park frowned. "Protocol 7? What's that?" She switched to another file. "Equipment failures that look like accidents. They've been sabotaging our machines, making our tools break down at critical moments. Every time we try to build something important, something goes wrong. The Titan colony disaster," Park said quietly. "The reactor failure that killed 200 people. It's not a failure," Soo-jin said, her anger growing. "Murder. They did it on purpose." She pulled up more files, and look at this. "The Luminari have been interfering with our communications. Every time we try to make friends with other species, our messages get changed or lost." Park's face went pale as he read. "The trade negotiations with the Altarian Republic. Our offers never reached them properly. They wanted us to look incompetent." Soo-jin explained. "Every other species thinks we're dangerous fools who can't control our own technology. But it's all been a lie." She showed him the worst part. A file labeled Termination Protocols contained detailed plans for completely destroying human civilization. Not quickly, like with weapons, but slowly over generations. They would cut off human colonies from each other, make their technology fail, and turn other species against them until humanity became so weak and isolated that they would beg the ancient powers for help. "Once we're dependent on them," Soo-jin said, "they'll control everything we do. We'll become their slaves, just like dozens of other species before us." Park stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "How many others?" "At least 47 species over the last 50,000 years," she answered. "All of them promising races that might have become powerful. The ancient powers found them, befriended them, and then slowly broke them down until they had no choice but to serve." "But why?" Park asked. "Why not just leave us alone?" Soo-jin pulled up another file. "Because we scare them." Get this analysis from the Nexus. "They've been studying human behavior for decades. They're terrified of how fast we adapt, how quickly we learn new things. Most species take thousands of years to change. We do it in decades." She read from the report. "Humans show unprecedented ability to overcome obstacles through creative problem solving. Their unpredictable nature makes them impossible to control through traditional methods. Recommend immediate action before they develop sufficient technology to resist our influence." "They're afraid we'll become too powerful," Park realized. "Exactly, and they're right to be afraid." Soo-jin stood up, feeling a fire burning in her chest. "Because that's exactly what we're going to do." She looked at the data one more time. 50,000 years of lies and manipulation. Hundreds of billions of beings across the galaxy who had been tricked into giving up their freedom. And now it was humanity's turn to choose. "We have a choice," she said. "We can pretend we never saw this and hope they'll leave us alone, or we can fight back." Park turned from the window, his eyes hard with determination. "What do you have in mind?" "First, we tell everyone. Every human colony, every ship, every government. Then we find the other species they've been controlling and tell them the truth too." She gestured at the screen. "This information changes everything. The galaxy's been living a lie for 50,000 years, and if they try to stop us," Sujin smiled grimly, "then we show them why they were right to be afraid of us." Dr. Lee Minho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he carefully brushed dirt away from the ancient stone tablet. The desert planet Kepler-4 for to see was hot and dry, but he had been digging here for 3 months. What he found buried in the ruins was about to change everything. The tablet was covered in symbols he had never seen before. They were not like the writing systems of any known civilization. As he worked to translate them, a chill ran down his spine despite the desert heat. These symbols told a story that the galaxy's rulers had tried to erase forever. "Impossible," he whispered, reading the ancient text again. The tablet spoke of a great civilization called the Builders who had once lived on this world. They had been wise and powerful, creating amazing technologies that could have helped the entire galaxy. But then the ancient powers came. The Builders had refused to bow down to the Zephyrians, the Nexus, and the Luminari. So the 3 ancient races had destroyed them, burning their cities and scattering their people to the winds. The tablet was a warning left behind for future generations. Minho's hands shook as he photographed every symbol. This was proof that the conspiracy was real and had been going on for much longer than anyone imagined. He immediately sent the images to Commander Kim Soo-jin through their secret communication channel. 3 days later, Minho received an encrypted message that made his heart race. Commander Kim had found evidence of the conspiracy and intercepted alien communications. She needed his help to find other civilizations that might have survived the ancient powers' control. If the Builders left this warning, Minho said to himself, maybe others escaped too. He began studying old star charts and archaeological records with new eyes. Every extinct civilization, every lost colony, every mysterious disappearance might actually be survivors hiding in the darkness of space. He started sending carefully coded messages to remote systems, hoping someone would answer. Meanwhile, on Earth, engineer Choi Yoon-ji was working 20-hour days in her laboratory in Seoul. The quantum communication device she had been developing for the military had taken on new importance. Commander Kim needed a way to talk to resistance. Fighters across the galaxy without the ancient powers listening in, EUNGs. Breakthrough came at 3 in the morning after weeks of failed experiments. She discovered that quantum particles could be linked across any distance instantly. When she changed one particle, its partner would change immediately, no matter how far apart they were. Messages could travel faster than light and be completely undetectable. This could work, she said excitedly to her computer screen. This could actually work. She built the first prototype in her lab using spare parts and borrowed equipment. The device was no bigger than a briefcase, but it could send messages to anywhere in the galaxy without leaving any trace. She tested it by sending a message to a research station on Mars. The reply came back instantly. 2 weeks later, Minho made contact with his first ghost civilization. The message came through Yunji's quantum network from a place that was supposed to be empty space. "We are the Vorthin," the message said. "We have been waiting in the darkness for 3,000 years. We heard your call and we remember the old ways." Minho's hands trembled as he typed his reply. "We are humans. We have learned the truth about the ancient powers. We want to fight back." The response came quickly. "We have been preparing for this day. We have knowledge they think is lost. It will help you." More messages began arriving through Yunji's network. The Kethmori had been hiding in a brown dwarf system, building ships and weapons in secret. The Yilian survivors lived on rogue planets that drifted between the stars. The Proxim had made their home in the dangerous radiation fields around a pulsar. Each ghost civilization had its own story of escape and survival. Some had fled when the ancient powers first arrived at their worlds. Others had pretended to be destroyed while secretly evacuating their people. A few had actually been wiped out, but small groups had escaped to rebuild in hiding. There are dozens of them, Minho reported during a secure meeting with Commander Kim. Maybe hundreds. They've all been waiting for someone to stand up to. The ancient powers. The survivors had spent centuries developing new technologies in secret. The Vorthon had learned to hide entire star systems from detection. The Kethmori had built weapons that could disrupt the energy beings of the Luminari. The Yilian had created shields that could protect against the crystal powers of the Zephyrians. They're willing to share everything, Minho continued. All their knowledge, all their technology, they want to help us fight. Youngji worked day and night to expand her quantum network. Each new connection brought more allies into the growing resistance. Scientists shared research data. Engineers exchanged blueprints. Military commanders planned coordinated strikes. 4. The first time in 50,000 years, the oppressed peoples of the galaxy had a voice. They could talk to each other, share information, and work together without the ancient powers knowing about it. The network grew stronger every day. We're not alone, Minho said during another secret meeting. We never were. The galaxy is full of civilizations that have been waiting for this moment. They're ready to fight alongside us. The ancient powers had made a terrible mistake. They thought they had destroyed or controlled every threat to their rule. But some had survived, grown strong in the darkness. Now they were ready to step back into the light. The rebellion was beginning, and it would be bigger than anyone had imagined. Captain Song Hoyanwu stood on the bridge of his ship Defiance, staring at the message that had just arrived on his personal communicator. The orders were clear and came directly from the Galactic Council. Return to Earth immediately and establish a complete blockade around the Sol system. No ships were to enter or leave. The reason given was terrifying. According to the ancient powers, humans had been infected with a deadly pathogen that could spread to other species. The entire human race needed to be quarantined until the disease could be contained. Any ship that tried to leave human space would be destroyed. Song knew it was a lie. 3 days earlier, he had received a secret message from Commander Kim Soo-jin. Through engineer Choi Yoon-ji's quantum network, the message contained proof that the ancient powers had been manipulating the galaxy for thousands of years. They were not trying to protect other species from humans. They were trying to trap humanity before the truth could spread. Captain, his first officer, called out, "We're receiving urgent messages from all human colonies. The Zephyrian fleet is already moving to surround our outer settlements." Song looked at his crew.
You're good.
These were good people who had joined the space patrol to protect humanity and keep peace in the galaxy. They trusted him to make the right decisions. Now, he had to choose between following orders and doing what was right. "Open a channel to Earth Command," he ordered. "Sir, we're supposed to maintain communication silence," his communications officer replied. "Override that order," Song said firmly. "And while you're at it, open channels to every civilization in the galaxy. I want everyone to hear this." His crew looked at him with surprise, but they followed his commands. Within minutes, Song's voice was being transmitted across hundreds of star systems through the quantum network that Yoonji had built. "This is Captain Song Haeonwoo of the Terran Defense Force," he began, his voice steady despite the fear in his heart. "I am speaking to all free peoples of the galaxy. What I am about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about our universe." He paused, knowing that his next words would start a war that could destroy everything. But the alternative was worse. If humanity was silenced now, the truth would die with them. "For 50,000 years, the ancient powers have been lying to you," he continued. "They have been controlling younger civilizations, destroying those who would not submit, and hiding the evidence of their crimes. The quarantine of human space is not about protecting you from disease. It is about stopping you from learning the truth." Song began transmitting the evidence that had been gathered. Dr. Lee, a Minho's archaeological discoveries showed the ruins of civilizations that had been murdered by the ancient powers. Commander Kim's intercepted communications revealed their secret plans for controlling other species. Most shocking of all were the testimonies from the ghost civilizations. the survivors who had been hiding in the darkness for centuries. On his screen, Song could see the reactions spreading across the galaxy. Communication networks lit up as the evidence was shared from world to world. The ancient powers tried to jam the transmissions, but Young Ji's quantum technology was too advanced. The truth could not be stopped. The pathogen they claim to fear is not a disease, Song said, his voice growing stronger. It is the idea that you do not have to be slaves. It is the knowledge that you have the right to be free. The response was immediate and overwhelming. On Centauri Prime, the Altarian Council held an emergency session. Within hours, they voted to cut all ties with the Crystalline Assembly. The Draconian Republic announced that they would no longer accept guidance from the Nexus. Even species that had been client states for generations began questioning their dependence on ancient technology. The Zephyrian ambassador demanded an emergency meeting with the Galactic Council. Song watched the live transmission as the crystal being's form flickered with anger. The humans have committed an act of war, the ambassador declared. They have spread lies and propaganda designed to destabilize galactic peace. They must be stopped immediately. Commander Kim Soo-jin appeared on the screen, representing humanity at the council session. She looked calm, despite the chaos erupting around her. "What have you done?" the Zephyrian ambassador demanded, his crystal body glowing with rage. "We told the truth," Soo-jin replied simply. "Apparently, that's your greatest fear." The Luminary representative, a being of pure energy, spoke in a voice like static electricity. "These accusations are baseless. We have maintained order in the galaxy for millennia." "Order built on lies and murder," Soo-jin shot back. "We have the proof. Everyone has seen it now." Watch as the galactic community tore itself apart. Some species supported the ancient powers either out of fear or genuine belief. Many more were beginning to question everything they had been told. The evidence was too strong to ignore. "Captain," his tactical officer called out, "we're detecting massive fleet movements. The ancient powers are mobilizing their forces." Song nodded grimly. He had known this would happen. The ancient powers would not give up their control without a fight. But something had changed in the galaxy. For the first time in 50,000 years, they were not fighting alone. "Send a message to all human forces," he ordered. "Tell them to prepare for war. And send word to our new allies in the ghost civilizations. It's time to step out of the shadows." The spark had been lit. Now, it would either grow into a flame that would burn away the darkness, or it would be extinguished forever. Admiral Kim Soo-jin stood in the command center of the massive space station that had become the heart of the rebellion. Through the wide windows, she could see something that would have been impossible just 6 months ago. Ships from 30 different species floated together in formation, their hulls painted with the symbol of the Free Worlds Alliance, a simple star surrounded by broken chains. Admiral Commander Park, J1 called from his position at the communications station. "We're receiving confirmation from the Outer Rim. The Tellurian system has joined the Alliance." "That makes 47 worlds in just this week," Soo-jin nodded, but her expression remained serious. The rebellion was spreading faster than anyone had expected, but she knew the ancient powers would not give up easily. They had controlled the galaxy for 50,000 years, and they would fight. "To keep that control? What's the status of our fleet?" she asked. 200 ships ready for combat," Park replied. "But Admiral, these aren't like the massive battle cruisers the ancient powers use. Most of our vessels are converted cargo ships and passenger liners. We're outgunned by at least 10 to 1. "Numbers don't tell the whole story," Soo-jin said quietly. "Our people are fighting for their freedom. It's worth more than any weapon." She was right about that. The war that had erupted across the galaxy was unlike anything in recorded history. The ancient powers had expected to crush the rebellion with overwhelming force, sending their crystal ships and energy beings to destroy human colonies. Instead, they found themselves fighting something they had never encountered before, an idea in her laboratory on Earth. Engineer Choi Yoon-ji worked alongside alien scientists who had joined the resistance. The Vorthon had brought knowledge of shield technology that could bend space itself. The Kethmori understood energy manipulation in ways that even the Luminari had forgotten. The Yilian had developed materials that could absorb and redirect massive amounts of power. We're close to a breakthrough, Yenji reported during the daily briefing. The combined shield system should be able to neutralize the energy weapons that have kept the ancient powers dominant for so long. How close? Sujin asked. Give us 2 more weeks, maybe 3. But the rebellion could not wait for new technology. Every day, more worlds declared independence from the ancient powers. The Draconian Republic had completely cut ties with the Nexus. The Altarian Council was helping other species break free from crystalline assembly control. Even the client species that had served the ancient powers for generations were beginning to question their loyalty. Dr. Lee Minho had become the voice of the resistance. His daily broadcasts told the true history of the galaxy, sharing stories of civilizations that had been destroyed for refusing to kneel. He spoke of the courage of those who had chosen exile over slavery, and the hope of those who dared to dream of freedom. Today, I want to tell you about the Mirathi, Minho said during his latest broadcast, his voice carrying across the galaxy through the quantum network. They were artists and philosophers who lived in the Andromeda Sector 3000 years ago. When the ancient powers demanded they give up their culture and adopt approved ways of thinking, the Mirathi refused. He paused, knowing that millions of beings across hundreds of worlds were listening.
Ow.
The Zephyrians burned their libraries. The Nexus tried to reprogram their minds. The Luminari destroyed their cities. But the Mirathi did not surrender. They chose to die as free beings rather than live as slaves. Their sacrifice was not in vain because their story survived. And now, their courage inspires us all. The effect was immediate and powerful. On worlds where species had been forced to abandon their own customs and traditions, people began to remember who they truly were. Ancient languages were spoken again. Old songs were sung. Traditional ceremonies were performed in secret. The ancient powers tried to stop the broadcasts, but they could not. The quantum network had grown too large and too complex. Messages of hope and defiance spread from system to system faster than any fleet could travel. Receiving reports from across the galaxy, Commander Park announced excitedly. The hegemony of Tau Ceti has declared independence. The mining guilds of the asteroid belt are refusing to send resources to the crystalline assembly. Even some of the client species are starting to rebel. Sujin smiled for the first time in weeks. What about the ancient powers? How are they? Responding, they're confused, Park replied. They keep sending fleets to crush individual rebellions, but by the time they arrive, the rebellion has already spread to 10 other systems. They don't know how to fight an enemy that exists everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The ancient powers had spent 50,000 years perfecting the art of control through fear and superior technology. They had massive fleets, weapons that could destroy planets, and the ability to manipulate space and time itself. But they had never learned to fight hope. Admiral, the tactical officer called out, we're detecting a large Zephyrian fleet approaching. The Kepler system. They're moving to destroy the archaeological sites Dr. Minho discovered. Sujin's expression hardened. Send the fleet. We're not going to let them destroy the evidence of their crimes. As the Free Worlds Alliance ships moved to intercept the enemy, Sujin felt the weight of history on her shoulders. This was more than just a battle for territory or resources. This was a fight for the soul of the galaxy itself. The flames of rebellion were spreading. Nothing would ever be the same. Admiral Kim Sujin stared at the massive structure floating in the darkness at the center of the galaxy. The ancient weapon was enormous, bigger than any space station she had ever wore. Seeing it pulsed with a dark energy that made her skin crawl, even through the protective shields of her flagship. How long has this thing been here? She asked Dr. Lee Minho, who was studying the readings from his science station. At least 50,000 years, Minho replied, his voice filled with awe and horror. Maybe longer. The energy signatures are unlike anything we've encountered before. The discovery of the weapon had come by accident. As the rebellion spread across the galaxy, the ancient powers had grown desperate. In their final transmission before retreating to their core worlds, they had threatened to reset the galaxy rather than lose control of it. Deep space sensors had detected massive energy buildups near the galactic center. What exactly does it do? Commander Park Jae-won asked from the tactical station. From what we can tell, Minho explained, it's designed to destroy all advanced technology in the galaxy. Every computer, every starship, every piece of machinery more complex than a simple tool. It would send every civilization back to the Stone Age. Sujin felt her blood run cold. They would rather destroy everything than let us be free. That's exactly what they're thinking, confirmed engineer Choi Yoon-ji, who had been working frantically. At her station, I've been monitoring their communications. They're planning to activate the weapon in less than 6 hours. The task force that had followed Sujin to the galactic core was the largest collection of ships ever assembled. Humans, Draconians, Altarians, Vorthan, Kethmori, and dozens of other species had come together for this final mission. But even their combined firepower would not be enough to destroy something this massive. We can't stop it, Park said grimly. The weapon is protected by shields that would take days to break through. And we don't have days. And we don't destroy it, Sujin said suddenly. We use it. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at her. Admiral, Park asked. Yoonji Sujin said, turning to the engineer. Your quantum network can transmit information instantly across any distance. What if we could boost that signal using the weapon's power source? Yoonji's eyes went wide as she understood. It could send information to every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously. Every piece of data, every secret, every hidden truth. Complete history of galactic civilization, Minho added excitedly. The locations of all the ghost civilizations. The technology needed for every species to achieve true independence. It's insane, Park said. We'd have to get inside the weapon and completely reprogram it. We'd have to do it before the ancient powers activate it. Then we better get started, Sujin said. The mission that followed was the most dangerous any of them had ever attempted. Small teams of engineers and scientists from multiple species worked together to infiltrate the massive weapon. The ancient powers had built it to be operated remotely, but the rebels needed to get inside to make the modifications. EUNG led the technical team, carrying portable quantum transmitters that could be linked to the weapon's power core. Minho brought data storage devices containing everything they had learned about galactic history. Other specialists carried the technological knowledge that the ghost civilizations had preserved for thousands of years. The ancient powers are trying to activate the weapon, Park reported from the flagship. We're detecting massive energy spikes. How much time do we have? Sujin asked. Maybe 30 minutes? Maybe less? Inside the weapon, Yoonji worked with desperate speed to connect her quantum network to the massive power systems. The technology was incredibly advanced, but she had learned much from working with the refugee scientists. Slowly, carefully, she began to reprogram the weapon's targeting systems. Instead of destroying technology, she explained to her team, we're going to create the largest information broadcast in galactic history. Every world, every ship, every communication device will receive the complete truth about everything. It work? Asked the Vorthan engineer working beside her. It has to, Yoonji replied. With 10 minutes left before the weapon fired, Sujin made the final decision. Do it, she ordered. The weapon activated, but instead of sending out waves of destruction, it transmitted pure information. Every secret the ancient powers had hidden. Every piece of technology they had suppressed. Every truth they had denied was broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of worlds, people, suddenly had access to knowledge that had been forbidden for millennia. They learned about their true history, their stolen heritage, and their right to be free. More importantly, they learned exactly how to achieve and maintain that freedom. The ancient powers, stripped of their secrets and their technological advantages, found themselves just 3 civilizations among hundreds. Some tried to fight, but their weapons no longer worked against enemies who understood their weaknesses. Others retreated to their home worlds, unable to accept the new reality. But most surprising of all, some of the ancient powers chose to join the new galactic community. As equals, without their ability to control others, they discovered that cooperation was more rewarding than domination. Years later, Admiral Kim Soo-jin stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, watching as a young species took their first steps into the galactic community. They were welcomed with celebration and friendship, not fear and suspicion. The galaxy had been transformed. The shadows of oppression had been burned away by the light of shared knowledge. For the first time in 50,000 years, every species was free to choose their own destiny. The stars burned bright with the fire of freedom, and they would never be dim again.